Today, we're thrilled to have Samantha Wong join us. At just 21 years old, she is a marketing management student at British Columbia Institute of Technology, passionately delving into the creative aspects of advertising. With a background in technology and graphic design, Samantha brings a unique edge to the marketing world. Stay tuned as we discuss her journey and insights into the dynamic field of marketing. Welcome to Eventus 365, the podcast that's all about corporate events and the magic behind the scenes. I'm your host, Yanique DaCosta, and I am excited to take you on a journey through the world of corporate events. But before we dive in, let's talk about the stress of creating marketing material for your events. We all know how tough it can be when deadlines are tight and resources are limited, but guess what? YKMD Visual Communications has got your back. Our design firm specializes in working with corporate event professionals just like you, and we're here to help take the stress out of creating stunning graphics for your event. Our team of expert designers can deliver custom brand compliant designs in just 12 hours. So whether you need branding, signage, marketing materials, or anything else, YKMD's got you covered. Okay, now that that's done, let's start the show. Samantha, you are here with me. Thank you for hanging out with me and doing all the things. So you have a unique background in technology and graphic design like me, which seems to give you like a competitive edge in the marketing world. Can you share?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, can you share with us like specific instances where your expertise in these areas kind of helped you to come up with like innovative solutions for corporate events?
Well, one that I can think of recently, at least. So we had this big sort of marketing conference. I don't know if you've probably not heard of it. It's the American Marketing Association. It's the International Collegiate Conference.
Uh-huh.
So it took place in New Orleans this year. And they have like multiple competitions and everything. And one of them was our t-shirt competition.
Okay.
So there were a lot of problems to begin with like our school sort of participating in that.
Okay.
We didn't really know the process. There was like a huge lack of communication, and there was like not really any time to like properly contact like a designer or anything or have anyone get started on that.
Mm-hmm.
So from my at least graphic design background, I was able to like sort of just quickly like put something together, which doesn't sound that nice,
Mm-hmm.
but in the end, I was actually pretty proud of it. And then we were able to still participate in that event, and still like get that recognition during the corporate event, which was pretty cool. And for like maybe my technology background, not really too much. It's a little still related. So there was also the website competition, and like from my background in like tech and everything, I do know like a bit of coding. So I helped code a bit of like our club website, and that also helped us participate in the event and just get in on time and sort of just like promote our school and everything.
Okay. I love that. So I mean, you are on the younger side of the industry.
Yeah.
So you've like probably seen some significant changes even during like your time in the field, just because your evolution or your involvement in the field is like literally during, the time that shall not be named, like the COVID.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most significant trends in corporate event marketing and planning that you think our listeners should really be paying attention to right now?
I think the main thing is just how these events are now hosted. Like a lot of the time, like this, it's held over Zoom now. So basically, from what I know of COVID, like, because this conference I went to too, it's annual, so it happens every year. And then they had to figure out sort of how to do it like online and be able to host like 1,000 kids like on Zoom and have everyone participate in like these events and figure out like breakout rooms and everything. So I think a main thing to keep in mind is how everyone is sort of shifted to having like events online and like having more opportunities for people around the world to just participate in these events when normally they wouldn't have been able to because travel restrictions or anything, like
Mhm.
just physically be there. So a lot of like the remoteness of these like corporate events or any kind of meetings, I think is important to keep in mind, and just like how to like navigate that, because I know at least for me, because I'm still attending like college, and there are a lot of teachers that don't really still like know how to use Zoom or host online meetings. So I think that's something that people can like practice and to get better at hosting like these corporate events and not have so many like technical difficulties like, oh sorry, having like 1,000 people in like the waiting room to let them into the Zoom or anything.
Okay, that it's so interesting that you say that because in my mind, right, I
Hmm.
feel like the corporate professionals who are putting on these events are going to familiarize themselves with the technology before the day of the event. At least that's what I would think like a good professional would do in order to like appropriately
Yeah.
prep themselves for that environment. It sounds like within an educational environment, maybe the content is put before the actual facilitation of the platform. Um, and that's probably where that error went. I mean, I'm just sharing my own like personal thoughts and feelings
Oh
as you're
yeah.
talking. Um, but it's kind of interesting to hear from like a student perspective, right? Because you're currently studying marketing management. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes people discount the feelings of the attendee because they're so entrenched in putting on the content and they forget like no that if this is uncomfortable for the person that's attending it might actually take away from this amazing content that you're sharing.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of the time, it's more towards like what makes them comfortable versus sometimes putting our like learning as a priority, which is kind of disappointing because we've had so many like issues with people like teachers and just like overall just holding these Zoom meetings because they don't really know how to use it. So then class will like be like at 8:30, but it'll actually start at like 9 because it takes them like half an hour to figure it out.
I mean, you know what? That's also sounds like a failing on the people who are like actually putting the teachers in positions to have these virtual classes, right? Like, were they trained
Yeah.
properly? Were they taught how to use the technology to facilitate the best experience for the students?
Yeah,
So that's a
exactly.
thought process.
It
Uh,
feels like they're just sort of thrown in there and just told like, oh, use this and this is what you're supposed to do. So they're also trying to like their best to navigate it. So it's just like a difficult situation, I think, for everyone.
Yeah. So like your collegiate studies right now focus on strategy and tactics. How do you think your formal education has helped shape your approach to corporate event planning? And do you have any advice for other, event professionals who are considering furthering their education in this area?
Yeah, so I honestly, like from my experience, like going through school and everything, it's just organization and scheduling the heck out of everything. So because like our workload is so heavy and there's just like so many things happening at once, I find at least like staying on top of things like having tools or like platforms to help you schedule like meetings and classes and just having like that organization of what to do at what time really helps. And I think sort of for like planning any events as well, I've had like a few experiences like planning some events, just like keeping track of things, like having having a list of like what needs to be done and like who's assigned to what, and like sort of having like a timeline of like how it's going to go before leading up to the event, and like just being able to check things off. So like, yes, I got the venue secured, yes, I've talked to like these sponsors, and just making sure you're on top of things. I think that's like a main thing to keep in mind, especially like from a student perspective. Like it's very easy to get overwhelmed with all these tasks. And also like you want event planning to also kind of be fun too, right? So, like at least for me, I enjoy that kind of thing. So I want to make my experience at least as stress-free as possible and like be able to actually enjoy the process rather than stressing out and being like, oh my God, did I do this or did I do that? Being
Mhm.
able to just like reflect back on like my list and be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm on track and everything's going like pretty well.
So, I mean, we all kind of know that things can get really like chaotic during event planning, just like you said. And so it's
Yeah.
really important to be mindful of the details and like create some kind of organization and structure. But can you share a story of like a particularly challenging situation that you had to overcome while working on an event, and how did you adapt and find a creative solution for it?
I think main thing that I've like faced from event planning is just like miscommunication. So there's a lot of times where like you'd contact like a sponsor or you'd be like talking to someone who's helping out and they'd say one thing and then maybe a week later they're like, I never said that. And you're like, oh crap. Like I'm pretty sure you did. And then everything just sort of goes downhill from there. So main thing I've learned is get everything in writing, which sounds like pretty like weird, like maybe it's like writing a contract or something. But honestly, like even just sending an email after like a meeting to like clarify, like, hey, this is what you said and this is what I'm gonna do. Is that all right? Saves you so much time, especially when they come back and say, well, I never said that. You can literally just reply to the email and be like, actually, you did. And I think that saves
Yeah,
like so much.
that's definitely project management 101 there. Like, hey, we had this
Hmm.
meeting, here's the meeting summary, thank you all for attending, looking forward to everybody doing their action items in X time. Da, da, da. So yeah, no, I love that you shared that based on like an experience that you've had. I think it's kind of
Yeah,
really important for younger like voices within the industry to kind of get a place to kind of talk and share their feelings and kind
right.
of help the ones who've been around a little longer kind of understand where the next generation is coming and where they kind of need to be led and where
Yeah.
they may need assistance and where they may not, and like what trends they find interesting to kind of help guide and steer the conversation for them, right?
Yeah.
To make sure that they continue to grow and thrive in the career that they have already been leading themselves. Um,
Yeah.
I think a strong focus on diversity, like equity and inclusion, is also essential in today's corporate landscape. How do you think event planners and marketers should ensure like effective efforts of inclusivity? And do you have like any examples from your own experiences?
I think the main thing is like the active listening of like a diverse group of people. So at least where I live, and where I go to school, there's like a large like diverse selection of different types of people. And I know that when we're like doing these kind of like event plannings or we're doing these kind of marketings, it's important to consider like everyone's perspective because something that might be good for like one group of people might not be good for others. And I know like just getting like that kind of feedback from different types of people and just like asking everyone like, hey, what is your perspective on this? Especially like in marketing. I know sometimes you run like pre-tests of like advertisements and we say like, hey, what do you think about this? Or like, what's your opinion on this? And I think that's important just to get like sort of perspectives from everyone just to see because your own perspective might be skewed from your own experiences, right? And you want to make sure that you're acknowledging everyone else's experiences towards something so you don't accidentally like create something that might be like offensive or hurtful.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think a lot of that kind of just talks about like the collaborative nature of the event industry. So we
Yeah.
know that like teamwork is critical when it comes to pulling off like a successful event, especially a corporate event where, just like you said, there are like sponsors and speakers and panelists and all
Yeah.
these things moving around. Can you share some fun and effective team building activities or strategies that you've experienced that could help like listeners foster strong and collaborative relationships with their teammates?
Ooh, so I got kind of got two. So one that I really enjoy is an escape room. I don't know if you've ever participated in
I
that.
have. I've even done a
Yeah.
virtual one.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, they're actually quite good.
Yeah, I love those escape rooms. I feel like just like having everyone in that room working towards that one end goal of like trying to get out. It can get stressful at times too because they're like, no, it's this or no, it's that. But it focuses, I think, on like strengthening your communication of being and like arguing your point, like, no, I think we should do this and here's why. And also sort of like leadership, like there's always that I feel like that one person that's like, hey, we got to stay on task, or hey, give me the clues, I'll keep everything all together. And just like that collaborative nature, it's sort of like working on one singular project. I feel like that's what an escape room is. And I think you also, from that experience, you get to know everyone's like ways of thinking
Or
and
even
like
strengths
how
and weaknesses.
exactly like how they approach a problem and like maybe what they're good at. Like some people might be good at like the critical thinking, like problem solving. Other people might be good at just like managing the team. And I think like escape room really helps like bring that out and like sort of like give you a little bit more understanding of how like the team functions. So I think like that's a really good starting team building exercise.
Well,
From
you said
my
you
own
had a couple.
I have, well, two. So, another one that I actually personally experienced. So it was this thing called Vancouver Mysteries,
Okay.
and it was like a group of like 10 of us, and we participated in like solving mysteries. So this was like a murder mystery, and it's in person, and basically they give you like a case, and then you go around like the city and like try to find the clues.
Mhm.
And that was really fun because you're like reading the book and then you guys are trying to solve this puzzle or like fill in the blanks.
It kind
So,
of sounds similar to like the escape room scenario where it's just like people working together to solve a specific problem. So you're really
yeah,
still talking about the same kind of team building activity where you're just talking about creating a fun, low pressure way for people to work together and solve a problem that has no real consequence. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of cool. I guess because that's what they spend their like regular day doing. So maybe it's just like a little less pressure. I remember
Yeah.
like for me, like when I was in corporate America, our biggest team building thing was always, at least in any of the event marketing departments, was always eating, drinking, eating and
Yeah.
drinking. More eat.
I mean,
I mean, the food
that's
was
fun
always
too.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
but like I really like your approach of like actually doing a thing. I think that
Yeah.
is a whole different kind of vibe, and actually in the midst of like having fun, you actually create or foster an environment for growth at the same time. Or
Yeah.
at
Because
least, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
oh, well, I was just gonna say like because I've had like you said where we've just gone out for like food or drinks and everything. And then when we actually get started on the project, I realize if I'm trying to like delegate people to certain tasks, I don't actually know what they're good at or what where their strengths and weaknesses are. And for other projects where we've done something like an escape room or like solving something like that, I find that when it's time to get on the project, I'm like, oh, okay, I know this person is good at this, or I know they're not so strong here. And it's just easier to like delegate them to the certain roles. And I feel like it's just a lot faster process for getting things done.
Got it. No, I think that's
Yeah.
fair. Um, are you going to any of like the big conferences this year? Any of like the big corporate event marketing conferences?
Not at the moment, no.
Yeah.
It was just that one big marketing conference that I was able to attend just
Mhm.
because I'm still in school, so it's gonna
That's
be a little
fair.
difficult to like go out and go to these conferences and have like teachers be okay with that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I could totally write you a pitch for your teacher. I think it's acceptable. But if you wanted to attend an event, which one, like, you're like, I have the money, I have the permission, like, I have the availability. Which event would you attend? At least one.
Ooh. I'm not too sure on that, honestly. Um, Personally, like I'll be honest, I don't know much about like the specific events that they have, but I do like going to like those big networking events where you just like meet a whole bunch of different people. Because personally, like I feel like I'm sort of more of like a people person. I really like that face-to-face interaction. So just any kind of event where I'm able to like meet people who've had like all these different experiences, or like these industry professionals who can give me like a little bit of insight into what career that I want to go into is very helpful. So honestly, like any kind of big event that has like the gives me the opportunity at least to network and get to know more people would be very cool.
So
Even if that's like somewhere outside of Canada, like New York or something, I would totally go.
I have heard, and I've been told, I'm going to find out myself this year, but I've heard that IMEX is the event to attend. And there's one in America, and then there's one in Europe. So this year there's one in Vegas, and then there's one in Frankfurt, Germany. So you might want to put those on your radar just as like a
I think I have heard of that one actually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have gotten today. Is there anything else that you would like to share, just for sharing's sake?
Just for sharing's sake. I don't think I have anything super specific other than that I know personally, like for me, because I used to be very like shy and not talk to a lot of people that much, or like go to these kind of events. So once in a while I hear like a quote that kind of gets stuck in my head, and I'm like, oh, it's so motivational, I gotta follow that. And this one, my friend told me as a joke, he was like, you miss all of the shots that you don't take. And I was like, you're so annoying. But like thinking on that, you really do miss all the shots that you don't take. And like there are so many opportunities that I know like either me or like a lot of people encounter that maybe they're too scared to do, or they're like, oh, it's like too much work, or maybe it's not going to turn out and nothing's really going to happen. I've like even just like doing this podcast with you, you know, it doesn't hurt to just like get yourself out there. Like what do you have to lose by doing something like this, or having a meeting with someone that you met, or even just reaching out to someone you met at a networking event and being like, hey, it was nice talking to you, would you like to get a cup of coffee sometime, right? And I think that's really important, just like taking these opportunities and not taking them for granted, and actually going in and putting yourself out there, because you never know what kind of things you're going to find. That's basically all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Samantha, for hanging out with me today and chatting. And we'll see you around.
Thank you for having me. It's
No,
nice
my pleasure.
Be here.
I think you're gonna really grow into someone who takes this industry by storm.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Eventus 365. We hope you enjoyed listening and learning something new today. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to help event professionals discover us. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and sign up for our newsletter for behind-the-scenes content and updates on upcoming events. If you have any suggestions for future topics or guests, or just want to say hello, you can reach us at info@eventus365.com. We love hearing from our listeners. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Eventus 365.